Hi everyone, and welcome to our CEM Year 5 homework review video. We're going to be focusing on week 3's content. We're going to be looking through lesson 5 tasks, which were all based on the verbal reasoning homework that was set. My name is Chris Pearce and I'm looking forward to working through this video with you. Just a couple of things to let you know about. Usually most of the time with these videos you can see me in the bottom right hand corner. We're actually going to put Billy the Bookworm there for this particular review video, so hopefully I won't distract you and you can just listen to me go through the different slides and the different tasks that you had. Obviously the advantage of a homework video is that you can pause it, obviously look through all the answers that you've got, obviously checking it through accurately and seeing why the answers are right or wrong. So we look forward to going through this homework review video with you. Let's have a look at the first few slides. So first thing, just to remind you, hopefully you're looking now at week 3's tasks, and we'll have a look at what those were in a minute. And this was focusing on verbal reasoning, and you are hopefully doing CEM if you're watching this video back. So here's the homework, and as you can see, this is week 3's task that I'll be looking at. There'll be a separate video for the non-verbal reasoning tasks, but I'm going to be focusing on test 14, test 15 and test 16. It's all going to be in the same book, your verbal reasoning and comprehension book, and we're going to go through each task in turn. So this is the book we're going to be looking at. It's always a good idea when you're working through your homework marking, you actually have your word and meaning book to hand as well. And I certainly know there'll be lots of words during your homework that may have been new that you need to record down and remember and put a little short definition next to it. So just as a reminder, we are going to see Billy the Bookworm in the corner, and we'll be able to run down then through each of the tasks. So the first test that we're going to look at is actually test 14, and it's adapted from the story of The Bandbox, and it's a Robert Louis Stevenson text. So hopefully you were able to read down through that passage. It's quite a short little extract, but some quite challenging words. You've got melancholy there, I can see, meaning sadness. So there's quite a lot of new words that you might have needed to look up. Hopefully you read it all down through, and then we can have a look at the questions. So if you haven't done it yet, obviously you could pause the video at this stage, just time yourself for 10 minutes and work through test 14. But if you have done it, you'll be interested to know now what those answers were. So let's have a little look. So the first question, how did Harry feel about education? So if we come back to the text, what I've done is I've highlighted where various different things are located. As you can see, there's quite a spread of where that evidence comes from, but it's really important you refer back to the text. And it says here, at that period, he manifested a remarkable distaste for study. So he really didn't like it, did he? So he didn't like studying. So that's the answer to question 1. So you can obviously give it a tick if you've got it correct. If you've got it wrong, just put a dot. But obviously you can have a little look through the other answer options, or you can apply elimination. That's always a good technique. Question 2, why was Harry able to spend his time on leisure pursuits? So if we go back and look at lines 6 to 8, we can go back, I think it's 6 to 8. Well, actually, no, it was a little bit earlier than that. It was, I think, 4 and 5 here. So it says here, he was permitted henceforth to spend his time in the attainment of petty and purely elegant accomplishments. So the answer was A, his parent wasn't strong-minded enough to stop him. So if we go back here, it says that his only surviving parent being both weak and ignorant being not particularly clever. So why was Harry able to spend his time on leisure pursuits? Well, his parents weren't strong-minded enough to stop him. So we can rule out the other options. So answer was 2A. Question 3, how do you know that Harry relied on his guardian for financial support? Well, you may have noticed here it says 2 years later he was left an orphan, so an only child, and almost a beggar. So it really does prove that he was nearly destitute and he didn't have any money. So he was very reliant on his income dried up after the death of his parent. Question 4, according to the text, which of the following must be true? So it's a true statement. Harry was not well suited to the world of work. And if we go back here, Harry was unfitted alike by nature and training. Okay, so that implies that he wasn't really fit for working. He preferred to do other things like sing romantic ditties, and also talks about his love of playing the piano as well. So, Harry was not well suited to the world of work. Question 5. How did Harry become Sir Thomas's private secretary? Well, if we go back to the text, it says here, a fortunate chance with some influence obtained for Harry. So lucky, but also influence obtained. In other words, connections, people that could help get Harry that particular job. So let's go and have a little look. Through a stroke of luck and his connections. Question 6. Why did Raja of Kashgar give Sir Thomas a diamond? Well, if we look at the bottom of the text, or near the bottom of the text, for some reason, some service, the nature of which had been often whispered and repeatedly denied. So it was all a little bit of a secret. So if we go back, we don't know it's a secret. Owning the Raja's diamond made Sir Thomas... Now, if we look at the last part of the text, we have a look at that bit there. It talks about the metaphor is used. So if we just read from this bit, the gift transformed General Vandeleur from a poor into a wealthy man, from an obscure and unpopular soldier into one of the lions of London society. So one of the lions is implying there that it's a very important person because lions are considered to be powerful. So if we go back to question 7, a very important person. So, well done if you managed to get all 7 of those. You can put your mark out of 7, and then we're going to have a look at some reshuffled sentences. So the first one, and always read it as it's written. In weekend, read book 2, she, the day's whole. We do have a pronoun there, which is she. Now, what did she do? Usually followed by a verb. She read. What did she do? She read 2. Let's make sure we get that in the right order. She read, and we could say 2, or we could say she read the. So we need to, so sometimes it doesn't always work the first time round. Try something slightly different. She read the whole book in 2 days. So sometimes that might happen where you do end up eliminating words and the order isn't quite right. So don't worry about that. Don't panic. Just rub it out and then you can easily start again. Then let's have a look at number 9. We've got, we know what the answer is. It says tweet, but the sentence should have been the bird. The bird what? We need a verb. The bird was. And what was he doing? He was singing while perched on a branch. Question 10, 20. Gethin. So that's always good to start with a name. So Gethin. If you didn't know Gethin was a name, you've obviously got a capital letter there as well for the proper noun. Gethin travelled hundreds of miles. And what was he travelling hundreds of miles to do? To see the exhibition. 11, we've got another pronoun here. We've got I. I am thinking of going on holiday to Australia. Well done if you got visiting as your superfluous word. So again, what you can do with these is just give them a nice little tick. Sorry, we could do a better tick than that, I'm sure. Try that one again. And then we've got visiting. And then the last 3 here, 12. Leave when switch the home, remember off, turn to lights you. This is obviously remembering to turn off the lights when you leave the home, something like that. So remember to turn the lights off when you leave home. Question 13. We've got a name there, another proper noun. So again, that could be the worth starting with. So Raina sketched an outline of a house in pencil. So will was the word we didn't need there. Influx. An influx means a lot of. So if you didn't know what that meant, but let's just read the whole sentence. Influx, sun, and good there. Tourists of was thanks weather to the. So maybe thanks to the weather, there was an influx of tourists.
An is a useful word because, of course, there needs to be a vowel after that. So maybe that might be influx, possibly. But let's just read out the sentence. Thanks to the good weather, there was an influx of tourists. There was an influx of tourists. So brilliant if you got sun as your superfluous word or the unnecessary word. Let's have a look at the last few questions of the first test, and these are synonyms. So these are words that mean the same. So it's just making sure that we take the words that mean the same as the word on the left. So we've got scared and afraid, summit and pinnacle. Another word for that is peak, to be at the top. Unacceptable and deplorable. So that's meaning unsatisfactory. It's deplorable, it's unacceptable. Naughty and disobedient, we would know that to mean badly behaved. I'm sure you're not naughty or disobedient. Convince and persuade. If you convince someone or persuade them to do something, you're trying to make them believe something. And then boring and tedious. Another useful word for that would be the word mundane. So if something's very mundane, it's very, very boring. And then you've got hopeful and optimistic. So I'd ask you please to put your score out of 20 there. And let's move on then to the next passage. Now the next passage is all about the Enigma machine. This might be something you've learned about at school, and this was used up to the running of World War II, and it was a deciphering machine for World War II. So hopefully you've read that through and you maybe underlined key things, key dates, anything you think might be important. There's also a really good video if you want to watch it, and this video goes through all about the Enigma machine. It's really interesting, so if you did want to copy that link you can, and you can certainly watch a video all about the Enigma machine. I'd certainly recommend that you do it. So we've got the text all highlighted where all the answers etc come from, but we're just going to have a little look at those answers now. I'm just going to highlight that again in green just so that you can, let's get the green pen, just so we can pick out some of that evidence there and have a little look where those answers have come from. So let's go down and have a look at the questions. So we've got question 1. What dangers do intercepted messages pose? Well, of course, if they're intercepted, it could be very dangerous for either side and certainly give an advantage to the enemy. So if we go and have a little look at the text, and it says in the second line here, if an enemy intercepts a message, the consequences can be catastrophic. So that's definitely the answer for question 1 is going to be B. So again, give it a tick if you got it right. If you got it wrong, just put a dot. You can always make sure you know why by looking back at the text. What was the Enigma machine? Well, it was a device that enciphered and deciphered sensitive messages, and it does tell you here, originally designed for commercial use, the Enigma machine was a scrambling device that translated messages into codes and codes into messages. So that's the answer D. And again, if you want to rule out the wrong ones, a bit like we did in the first comprehension, of course you can. It's always worth limiting your choices. How did Arthur Scherbus intend the Enigma machine to be used? Well, Arthur Scherbus intended it to be used for businesses, and it actually talks about commercial use. And anything to do with commercial use is for businesses to use. So that was why it was originally intended to be used, but of course that's not what it ended up being used for. Question 4, how did the Enigma machine operators encode a message? Well, if we go back and have a look at the text, the operator then encoded the message by noting down the letters that lit up on the panel's lights when the correspondence was keyed into the keyboard. So if we come back and look at our options, they typed a message letter by letter, recording the light panel's output. Then we've got question 5. How did the recipients of Enigma correspondence decode the text? They followed the same procedure used to encode the messages. Let's go back and see if there's evidence here. He or she then repeated the process to decipher the encrypted text. So there's the evidence there. So this is really all about going back to the text and clarifying your thinking. Why did Hans Thilo Schmidt have access to information about the Enigma machine? He worked for a German encoding department. Let's go and see if it mentions anything about that. Here we go. He
who held a position at Germany's Cipher office in Berlin. So I think that's proof enough. Let's go back to the question. So that should have been C. And question 7, why did Hans Thilo Schmidt and Marian Rejewski have in common? So what do they have in common? Well, they worked for countries that were not privy to messages sent by the German army. Okay, so if we go back to the text, it talks a little bit down here about, here we are, shared information about the Enigma machine with Marian Rejewski, a Polish code breaker. So it does talk a little bit about their relationship with their respective countries. So, excellent. Let's go and have a look now at the first synonyms in this test. Now, we just need to got some words here that hopefully give you a few extra definitions that you can easily scribble down in your books. So, let's just have a little look through. Heave and haul. You may have heard of haulage. If you heave something, you haul it. So, moving it from one place to another, or sort of lifting. Scrawny and gaunt. If you're gaunt, you're sort of thin, sort of gaunt in the face. Enthusiasm and fervour. That means to be eager, to be keen. Conflict and strife. Those words would be synonyms of each other. So again, it's just worth checking down what these words mean. So sort of a conflict is more like a sort of a disagreement. Again, put the words in your word and meaning book if you didn't know what strife meant, for example. Unstable and volatile, sort of unsteady, those are synonyms. Suppress and strife, that means to prevent from occurring, to stop from happening. Charitable and altruistic is being selfless. If you're charitable, you're selfless, you're altruistic. So again, what you can do is if you've got all those right, I'm just going to come down the side here, you can easily give them a nice tick. If you've got any wrong, maybe record down any words that you didn't know. Sometimes actually getting an image of some of the particular words you didn't know can really help you as well. Something I often do is type the word into Google, brings up an image, and then you can hopefully remember that word better. Let's have a look at the next questions. These were odd ones out, one word that does not relate to the others. And we've always got the same example usually, haven't we? Journal, diary, textbook and notebook. So a journal go and diary and notebook go together to leave you with the word that you don't need. So let's have a look at why those three words go together and why we're left with the word that we don't need. So we've got break, rest and pause. They all go together, so they mean to temporarily stop doing something. So break, rest and pause, whereas shatter's the odd one out. If I throw, launch and hurl, they all mean to sort of chuck something or propel through the air, so roll would be the odd one out. If I confirm, certify and approve something, they all mean to accept, whereas propose means when you sort of put in an idea, but all the others mean to accept. Hygienic, sanitary and clean all to mean be germ-free. That's quite an apt kind of question at the moment, isn't it? To be germ-free. Whereas tidy can be tidy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're clean, so that's the odd one out. Cut, incision and slice, often used with a knife to make a cut, an incision or a slice, whereas rip is the odd one out. And then origin, dawn and outset all mean beginning, and then a conclusion is the end. So beginning. So I could put dawn, outset and origin is the start or the beginning. So conclusion was the odd one out there. And if we have a look at the last test you had to do for your homework, you had another, we're looking very much at Second World War, aren't we, today? There was another little closed passage that you had to do, and then there was a series of word questions afterwards. So I'm going to read this through to you, and you can obviously check to see whether you selected the right word. So, during the Second World War, food rationing was introduced, meaning the amount of food families could receive was restricted. Although rationing may sound cruel, it was introduced to ensure that everyone had enough food to survive. Before the war, much of Britain's food was imported. However, once the war began, supply ships were often attacked, leading to a decline in the amount of food brought into the country. Food prices could have soared as supplies became scarce. meaning only wealthy people would have been able to afford to eat well. Initially, rationing only applied to a few products, such as bacon, butter and sugar. As the war progressed, however, rationing was extended to include many other foods. So hopefully where you've seen the line, those are the words that you need to select. Remember, there's only going to be one word that's going to make sense in the sentence. Let's have a look at the next ones. These are actually antonyms, so we're looking at opposite in meaning here. So we've got necessary for 13 and necessary and redundant. So necessary meaning essential, whereas redundant means not required. So that's why those two are opposites. Incomplete and exhaustive. Incomplete means unfinished, whereas exhaustive means complete. Cheerful means happy, excited, joyful, whereas despondent means unhappy. Now, if you didn't know what despondent meant, again, put it in your word and meaning book. Just put despondent under D and then put unhappy. Unwise and prudent. Prudent being wise, clever, not foolish. And then last one, confidence and apprehension. If you're confident about something, you're assured. If you're apprehensive about something, you don't really want to do it. So you're a bit nervous, a bit of anxiety. So maybe even anxiety might be worth putting in your word and meaning book, but under A with apprehension. Well done if you managed to get those. We've then got a couple more reshuffled sentences that we need to look at. So 18, we've got adult was the superfluous word, and the sentence should have been, it won't be long before you're all grown up. Before you're all grown up. So adult was the word we didn't need there. And then 19, I suppose we'll have I, so the pronoun, I suppose we will have to wait. We will have to wait until tomorrow. So next was the word we didn't need there. And then we've got 20, and the sentence should have read, it would be unfair if we didn't invite him. It would be unfair if we didn't invite him. And will was the superfluous word. And then the last one here, it's useful to start with a pronoun, they set off, where did they set off? On their long walk to, or down to, the beach. So they set off on their long walk down to the beach. So towards was the word that we didn't need there. So hopefully you managed to get most of those correct. And if we look at the last ones, these are another set of odd ones out. Glove, because these three are all one on your feet. I've seen other questions like this where you might have words like clog or sandal, so just knowing that they are on your feet. And you've got lights, bauble, holly and tinsel. So lights, bauble and tinsel are obviously not living things, whereas holly is. And then you've got cure, treat. So sorry, let's just put those together. Don't need to do that, but it just helps you sort of group them. Cure, treat and operate. And then we've got recover as the odd one out there, because all the other three are verbs associated with making somebody feel better if you cure or treat or operate on them. 25, we've got company, and then we've got department, division and section. So they are all parts of a company, whereas company is the whole. And then 26, all the others are categories of instruments. So you can have the string instruments, the wind instruments, the ones you blow in, and then the brass instruments. So guitar was the odd one out there. Guys, thank you for watching this Teach It Right homework review video for week 3. Hope it helped you go through the answers, and I hope you did really, really well. And we look forward to seeing you in your next live session. Guys, take care of yourselves and see you soon. Bye.